The newsroom. My name is Neil Marks, and we're continuing our coverage of elections 2020. As we have been reporting, the Chief Elections Officer Keith Lowenfield has presented his report on the national vote recount to the Chair of the Elections Commission. As for the recount order, the Elections Commission has 3 days within which to consider the report. As of broadcast time now, a meeting of that commission has not been called more than 24 hours after Mr. Lowenfield presented his report. There's no indication of how soon a meeting could be called. But we've been getting reactions to the report presented by Mr. Lowenfield. The Private Sector Commission, the PSC, has said that it believes it is time the Chair of the Elections Commission go ahead and declare the results of the elections in accord with the figures produced from the national vote recount. To talk to us more about that is the Chairman of the Private Sector Commission, Captain Gerry Gouveia. Captain Gouveia, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, yes.
Could you pick up from what I just said from your statement?
Well,
you're saying
yes. I'm the Chairman of the Private Sector Commission, and the Private Sector Commission led and coordinated a 500-600 man team, woman team, observer team for the elections in 2020. And we joined with another maybe 200, 250 foreign observers that observed these elections. And every single one of us, without exception, including the local diplomatic community here, the US Ambassador, the Canadian High Commission, the British High Commission, the European Ambassador, every single one, by Wednesday, that is Wednesday the 4th of March, had publicly pronounced on the credibility, on the freeness, that it was free, it was fair, it was credible, it was transparent, it was professional, and the elections were well run. And Guyana should have been proud of those elections. We were deployed all over Guyana without exception. We knew, and everywhere we went, there were PPP agents in the room, there were APNU agents in the room. There were other small parties in the room. There were GECOM. There were 5 GECOM staff in the room, and everywhere we went, we saw a very professional operation of GECOM, and I was very, 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 very impressed. I must tell you that. And if I should fast forward now, just to say that when I hear Lowenfield pronounce yesterday that an election which he presided over, an election which he spent $8 billion to do, that he completely is attempting to satisfy some kind of political objective of his, that he is prepared to throw himself under the bus. He's prepared to throw his entire staff of GECOM under the bus, to say that this was the most atrociously incompetent elections we've ever run in the history of Guyana. That we are now attempting to disenfranchise 280-something thousand Guyanese that voted because of some cheap political loyalty. It's absolutely atrocious. I am sickened by it. I'm sickened by it, and I cannot believe that a former army officer that I serve with would throw his country under the bus like that and throw all his colleagues of GECOM under the bus, because to suggest what he's suggesting is to suggest that all of the GECOM staff that was in that room, to suggest that all of the PNC, the APNU staff that was in the room, and all the other parties that were in the room, and the police, they were all somehow corrupted people. I mean, I am just mind-boggled to understand why he believed that anyone would believe that. Why would they believe that anyone would believe that? I mean, this is so crystal clear. The elections were run. We were there. We saw it. We saw the voting happening. We went, and particularly with me, I flew the ABC ambassadors across the country. We went to different regions. We looked at a diversity of polling stations. And what struck me was how well trained the GECOM staff was, how disciplined, how orderly the polling stations were. There were no disturbances. There was no reports of any anomaly. And then we saw, as the day went on after the elections, the tabulation that was happening in the regions, and every regional tabulation process had local and international observers in the room. And the reports were coming back, and it was, I really felt that this was going to be a very well run elections, and we were going to get great marks for it. When I stood in the room at Ashman's building, and the night when it started, this was on the 3rd of March, I saw Mingo. Mingo was there, he and his staff, and they were picking up an SOP, and they were reading it, and they were corresponding with the people in the room, and it was going very, very well. And then, of course, it went on into Tuesday. Mingo got tired. We put it off to Wednesday. And then Wednesday, Mingo got sick. They medevaced him with an oxygen in his face out of the building. And then, much to our surprise, we were all sitting there waiting. Much to our surprise, the two staff walk into the room with a spreadsheet and said they come to continue the tabulation. And people said, well, where's your SOPs? And they said, well, we are doing it from the spreadsheet. And it started there, and it shocked me that they could actually come into a room full of international and local observers and party agents and attempt to pull a con job. This was an atrocious, brutal, disrespectful con job that was being deployed in front of everybody in that room. And of course, people tried to stop them. Eventually, Lowenfield himself came to that room, and Lowenfield said, what's going on, why y'all are angry? And people told him, and he said he went and he did a check. He went and checked 2 of the SOPs, and he recognized that he said, yeah, okay, it's wrong. So the commission had an emergency session, and Lowenfield came back. By that time, all of the international observers came to that room. All of the ABC ambassadors were in the room, and Lowenfield, in front of everybody, said that they're sorry and they're going to move forward. They're going to do it the right way. They're going to put up a screen, and they will show the SOPs and so on. And it started, it was perfect. And it went on for a little bit that night, and then they postponed to the next morning, Thursday morning. I'm telling you, I was standing in that room on Thursday morning when, or sometime during the day there, when Mr. Mingo somehow miraculously appeared out of the hospital. And this was such a disrespectful attack on our intelligence. He appeared out of the hospital with a piece of paper and said he come to declare results. And people say, how could you be declaring results when we have not even finished the tabulation? And I remember, I could not believe that in 2020, we could have such a brutal assault on our democracy, such a brutal assault on our intelligence. And it went downhill from there. And you know what happened. And so, but the point is that every international observer mission that came to Guyana spoke about the quality of the elections, the certified elections. There was no anomalies. President Granger himself came out and said what a great elections and how credible it was. The Elections Commission chairman, she put her word on it, and she came out publicly and had a press conference and was in high praise for the elections and how well it was. And now, look, we went through the whole process. And she told me the night, in fact, on the Wednesday night when we had a little commotion at the Ashman building because people wanted to get people to continue the tabulation, she came down and she asked them to be patient and so on. And then she told me, she said, Gerry, don't worry, we'll do a recount. And I believed her. I believed her. This is on the 4th of March. She said to me, we're going to do a recount. She said it in front of the Chief Justice. She said it to the diplomatic community, and she did it. And I will tell you, Mark, the first day that I went to the convention center, I was so impressed with the organization, with the transparency and of the recount process. The recount process, and this is what it was a recount process. This was no audit. This is a recount process. And so when I got there, I was so impressed, and I thought that Guyana need to be grateful for GECOM is redeeming themselves. In fact, it wasn't the whole of GECOM, just a few people that did what they did. And I thought, and the chairman kept her word, and I was there. Listen, we, the Private Sector Commission, and the other local observers, we coordinated the local observer team, and there were 10 stations, and then there were 12, and we had people in every single station every minute of the day, for every day of that recount. And the recount was professional, it was credible, it was transparent. Every ballot paper that came out of that box went under blue light to confirm the security of the ballot paper. When this when this fiasco started, you know, I don't want to be disrespectful to political parties. I am a private sector leader, and we work with every political party in Guyana in and out of office. But I remember sitting in the room as an observer, and I saw this young man came and he started to, with a piece of paper, and started to call out serial numbers. And the GECOM staff was like stunned. And then he said, I want you to check to make sure if there was a tick against these people's name. And they would call like 100 of these serial numbers, and she would say like 2 of them were tick or 3 of them were tick. And then he would say, well, these people are dead, or these people are out. When I heard that, we said, could we see the tick? Could we see this tick you're talking about? Because this would be the most craziest thing if a dead person walked into that room and voted. So we said we wanted this, and they said, no, you can't see it. So we said, listen, we're here as observers. And if you're telling me that there's a tick against a dead person's name, I want to observe it. We want to put it in our report. Because we want to, they said, no, you can't see it. So please get your supervisor. They went and they asked the supervisor, and they came back and said, you can't see the tick. So I, in my mind, right away recognized this was a scam. This was people they were messing with our intelligence. This was the case where after the Mingo fiasco, and it is obvious that the SOPs matched, at the end of this exercise, matched the SORs almost 99.9%. And so it means that all the political parties knew the results of these elections, and they were playing the fool. And so when I saw this fiasco went on day after day, we first of all, very early in the recount process, wrote the chairperson of GECOM, the private sector, wrote her, and said, we are getting all of these allegations, and GECOM is silent on them. Deal with them now. I mean, you know, they're only 1 or 2 days. Let's deal. So every day that these allegations were made, let's deal with them now, and don't let them pile up and become. And we wrote her to that effect. We wrote it about maybe the 8th or the 9th of June, I believe it was. Is it June or May?
May.
May, right? And this thing continued every day, and it became a charade. It was almost comical. They would come and they would start calling out names only to find numbers, only to find out that it was a different box they were talking about, and so on. And but it really was an assault on our intelligence. And I really thought that that the GECOM staff and Lowenfield, I really thought that they recognize now that Guyana is under the spotlight, that every single international agency was looking at Guyana, and that no one was believing this. So they keep asking this question: if everyone believed that the Mingo fiasco happened, why people are not believing their version of a fiasco? Well, nobody believed their fiasco because that's what it was. It was a fiasco. What happened with Mingo was for real. People saw it. People knew it was for real. This, what they were doing, was a fiasco. And nobody was believing them because it was not believable. And they're the only person who were believing this is them. Every single party, there were 9 parties that contest these elections. Other than them, every single other observer, every other party were saying, what is wrong with these people? What is wrong with them? Little did we know that, and I could not believe that a party that really commands the respect of 217,000 Guyanese would try to pull such a stunt. And obviously, Lowenfield have shown an enormous compromise by now suggesting that he got the power to disenfranchise 280-something thousand Guyanese from their vote because of these crazy allegations, which bear no foundation in truth. There was no truth to it. We saw it. We were there. We said, show me the tick. They wouldn't show you. They said no. So I will tell you that I am stunned, but I believe this. I believe that democracy will be victorious in Guyana. I believe that the truth will be victorious in Guyana. The good thing is, I think that the CARICOM team was here. We also had people from the OAS in the room. We had people from the embassies in the room. And so this is not just about the local observers. This is not just about, and this is not a fight between the PPP and the PNC. This is not a fight between those two people. This are these two parties. This is a fight between democratic forces and undemocratic forces. This is a fight between good people and people who are attempting to somehow hijack our elections. And I want to tell you, as a business person who developed my business over the last 27 years and create jobs for young Guyanese of all races and genders and geographic locations in this country, I am personally very, very offended. I am very offended that that this attempt to hijack our democracy is happening in 2020. I could not believe that anybody will dare do that in 2020.
So, you said the Lowenfield report resembles the allegations made by APNU plus the FC. What should be done with it? That's what I've been asking everybody. What should the commission do with it?
Well, remember this report that Lowenfield did now will go to the commission. The commission will decide whether he should go to the next stage. Well, if he got to do a second report, which is going to do the seat allocations. I actually am very, very strong in my belief that the chairperson, who is an officer of the court, will not allow herself to go against the law and go against the confines of the law. And I believe that she will make the right decision. Now, with the desperation that I'm seeing and the level in which people seem to want to go to hijack our democracy, I don't know what ends they will go to. But I will tell you that the resolve and the resilience that I've seen of young people who stood and watched those boxes every night for the last how many months, for the people who went into that convention center every single day, from 7:30 in the morning to 7:30 at night every day, there's a tremendous resolve and a tremendous passion for democracy. And, you know, whether you like it or not, whether you like the party that will win or not win, you have to respect the will of the people of Guyana. And I believe that people are not going to take this easy. If there's some kind of notion that people believe that that people will go to the United Nations, they will stay home. I mean, this is going to be the most craziest thing. But I do not believe that anybody will be allowed to steal Guyana's democracy today.
The Attorney General said that these results should not be declared because of Lowenfield's report. What do you say to that? Could GECOM say that this report from Lowenfield says that these elections were so badly run that we can't take these results?
They will never convince anybody that these elections were not properly run. They will never. The only people who will believe that is them. And probably their 3 commissioners. But they certainly cannot convince the PPP commissioners, and they can't convince the chairperson. The chairperson came out publicly and said that these elections were properly run and they were credible. To say that, and you know, unfortunately, I heard President Granger twice, a couple of days ago on a radio program and this morning again. He's saying that the reason he agreed to a recount was because of some irregularities and things that happened back, and he's not saying what it is. He's not saying that Mingo was attempting to manipulate and put in false numbers to give his party inflated numbers. He's not saying that. He's making it sound somehow like if somebody else was trying to, and he spoke about allegations of dead people back in March 2nd. Listen, there's no way, there's absolutely no way I could go into that polling station and vote twice. There's no way I could go into that polling station and vote for you. There's no way that any political party, no political party could interfere or tamper with the GECOM electoral system. No way, it can't happen unless there's collusion. And that collusion got to be between the GECOM staff and whichever political party or person wants to do that manipulation. And everybody else in that polling station either have to be involved in that conspiracy, or you have to raid them out of the polling station. The polling station, when you walk in there, everybody in the room, all the party agents, got a folio with your photograph in it. You know, you don't even need to have an ID card. You don't even need to swear to an affidavit. You could go into that room and say, my name is Gerry Gouveia, and they will open that. They will find your name on the list if you're there, and then they will correspond you to the folio. The folio will have your picture, and it will have all your biodata that is on your ID card. And so if I went in there and said, I'm Neil, or I'm Marx, I am this, I'm that, they will never believe me because I don't match the photograph. And what is important to understand as well, that every voter on that list corresponded to the fingerprint. And I heard this allegation being made all the time, and it is so reckless, and that the list is bloated. Our list by no means is bloated, Mark. Neil, our list it was completely redone in 2008. There was a house-to-house registration. The old list was scrapped. We introduced biometrics, fingerprint biometrics, so every voter was registered using his fingerprints, right? So you can't have duplicate people on the list. And then the next significant thing that happened from 2008 is when we started the continuous cycles of registration. Because before that, we only did house-to-house registration, so you only captured people who was home. So pilots, loggers, miners, Amerindians were not home. So a lot of times you missed a lot of people. Even our overseas brothers and sisters who were living overseas or you couldn't get them. When the continuous cycles of registration started, then I could have gone into a registration booth one day. I wasn't flying the plane. I could go and get myself registered, Amerindians, loggers, miners, and so on. And then overseas-based Guyanese. We have about maybe 1.5, 1.6 million Guyanese living in this world today. And so when people, over the last 10 years, people were coming home to visit, whatever, and people were registering themselves. So the fact that this list got 660,000 people should be of no surprise to anybody. Sure enough, you may have people who died and the name did not come off the list, but a dead person cannot vote, and you cannot vote for anybody else. And so, because of the tightness of that system, and so when I keep hearing people keep bringing up this thing, oh, we spoke about the list, oh, we spoke about the list. This list is the cleanest and most secure list. So to get on that list, you had to be here in Guyana. They will register you, to take your fingerprints, and they come to your house, and they will check to see that you're living there. And then afterwards, you could travel to wherever you want to travel. So that's fine. But the point is that the list was properly constructed with a lot of security, and every person on the list corresponds to a fingerprint. So for people to suggest that somehow that list could contribute to electoral fraud, and to even suggest that there's some political party involved in the fraud, it's crazy. So what Lowenfield have done with his report yesterday is an amazing self-destructive move for himself, because he could never be hired by anybody else. If he will take $8 billion, if he will take $8 billion to do an election, and then turn around and say this election was the most sloppy and incompetent elections in the history of Guyana run by him, and all his professional staff, and that he have now thrown all of them under the bus, and for the APNU to say that all of their polling agents, all 2,339 of them, sat in that room and saw this skullduggery and massive disregard for the rule of law, and dead people were coming in and voted, overseas-based Guyanese names were coming, and they did nothing, and they did not raise one objection on election day. Who's going to believe that? Who is going to believe that? So I saw a letter today, and it's obviously a fake letter. Somebody did a fake letter with Lowenfield's signature, asking the police commissioner to investigate.
He has since disputed that
it's fake. No, I have no. The minute I saw it, I have no doubt that it's fake. But it is actually very. If in fact what he's claiming, then that letter needs to be true, because he needs to write the police commissioner to lock all his staff, including himself, and all his returning officers, and all of and APN, you need to do the same thing for all their staff. If they are claiming that you had this kind of widespread, massive fraud that happened for our elections, but it's not true. I want to tell you it is not true. It is not even a smoke screen. It's a disrespectful mud bath. It's a disrespectful mud bath that these, and I believe it's a small group of people that is trying to do this to our country, and I want to urge them to stop it. The private sector is extremely terrified. Our businesses have been tremendously impacted by the COVID-19. It's been investor confidence is hitting rock bottom with this electoral, this fear that is being generated by this. And we have a lot of young people that need jobs. We need to be able to feed our people. I saw an interview you did this morning with Asha, and she had tears in her eyes. And I watched her and I related with it, because I'll tell you, when I was in the Ashman building, and I saw what Mingo was trying to do. For people like me who served Guyana for all these years and tried to build Guyana, make Guyana a better place, that in 2020 we could have anybody with the audacity to believe that they could pull off a crime like this in front of the whole world and get away with it. I was very emotional in that room, and I watched her today, and I could tell you, I'm sure that there are thousands and thousands of Guyanese that are feeling this. And you see that eruption of violence and protest that happened up in the west coast of Berbice. Those people were angry. That young boy that was killed, it's unfortunate that what happened to him, and the fact that he was on the road, I blame Mingo for his death. I blame Mingo for his death. If Mingo, that young boy was on the street because he was enraged by what Mingo was trying to do to our democracy. And I would say that GECOM got a lot to answer for creating that condition to take these young people and put them on the streets. They were angry, and we have to stop doing this. Guyana, we are on the threshold of great, great things, Neil. And we really need to pull ourselves together. And even when this is over, we have to work together. Both of these parties got a huge following. 217,000 people are supporting the APNU, and 237,000 supporting the PPP. And they have to go to Parliament, and they have to work together, and we have to deal with this COVID issue. We have to deal with, and we have to make the best use of the resources coming out of that oil. And we have to bring that natural gas lines. Why is it in 1 year down the road we still not benefiting from the natural gas? All these lights that's burning here, we should be paying 80% less for them. We are flaring natural gas in that Atlantic Ocean. It's crazy. So because our political leaders are so distracted and trying to stay in power and stay relevant, we are not managing the things that are important.
So you believe that the Elections Commission should disregard Lowenfield's report and declare the results of the elections? Oh,
absolutely. I mean, I think first of all, we still have to hear from CARICOM. And CARICOM is going to speak. And I want to tell you, I keep hearing this thing that we don't want to have external interference, that we must leave our internal affairs for Guyana. But I say no. I say no. If we have people that are attempting to interfere with our electoral process, especially in the way it is being done, we need all the help we could get. Let me tell you, as the chairman of the Private Sector Commission, I speak with the voice of, and I don't care what people in the private sector, and we welcome the intervention of the CARICOM leaders. We welcome the voices. We welcome the voices of the Western world, of the OAS, of CARICOM, of the European Union, of the Commonwealth Secretariat, of the Carter Center. We welcome, because that is what gives our governments the legitimacy to carry on. That is what allows us to deal with the challenges before us. And let me give you this. Very shortly at the end of this month, Guyana is going to be going in front of the World Court to deal with the Venezuela issue. And Guyana could never, in our wildest dreams, hope to have a military answer to Venezuela. We could never have a military. While we have brave young men in our military, while we're out there all the time, 24 hours a day, 365 days, on that border watching the Venezuelans, we could never, if the Venezuelans ever decide to make the move, we could never stop them. The only thing we have to stop them is our bilateral relations with regional organizations, with CARICOM, with Brazil, with Commonwealth Secretariat, with the OAS. The only thing we have to do is depend on our international partners. So our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is probably the most vital defense weapon that we have. And so Guyana have to have legitimacy, our government got to have legitimacy to be able to access these organizations. And if we end up with a government without legitimacy, and we are blocked from CARICOM, and we are blocked from the OAS, we are blocked from the Commonwealth Secretariat, we are blocked from our relationships, because there's no one who will stand with an illegitimate government in Guyana. And so it is very important, our relationship with CARICOM. And you listen to Owen Arthur speak about the consequence of our government being an illegitimate government. I mean, it is frightening. And this is not only about what will happen to Guyana, what will happen to you and I, but what will happen to individual leaders, because the whole world will go after them as well. And I really hope that better sense will prevail. I really hope that that in the next few days, the GECOM will meet the chairperson of GECOM, who is an officer of the court all her life, that she will do the right thing and she will not be influenced by people who are attempting to hijack our democracy. And certainly Lowenfield report and observations in his report could find itself in the court of law. All right? But to bring it to GECOM and somehow believe that Lowenfield is somehow invested with the power to disenfranchise 285 or 8,000 Guyanese is ludicrous and is the most disrespectful attempt that I've ever seen. And he made Mingo attempt to in March look like child play. Mingo was messing with 15,000 or 20,000 votes. Lowenfield went with 285,000 votes. I mean, it's just crazy. It's ludicrous.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gouveia. We're talking with Captain Gouveia, the chairman of the Private Sector Commission, as you continue to cover elections 2020 in Guyana. This is the newsroom.